What's up, everybody? It's JT Sports. I'm at you guys with another video. And this video, I'm here with my DC Defenders versus the New York Guardians XFL Week 2 preview and prediction. Going to be previewing this matchup and give my prediction on who will win this game. And before I begin, if you are new to the channel and you're a fan of the XFL or NFL and college football, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel because I upload XFL videos, college football videos, and NFL videos daily. So we have the DC Defenders taking on the New York Guardians. Now, both of these teams are coming into this game 1-0. Both of these teams both won last week. The DC Defenders beat the Seattle Dragons 31-19, and the New York Guardians beat the Tampa Bay Vipers 23-3. But I mean, I wouldn't just call that a victory. I would call that they gave the Tampa Bay Vipers a curb stomp. That's basically what that was. So when you look at the New York Guardians, their defense played very, very well, especially in the red zone. Now, since this is week 1, well, since that was week 1, we're still trying to figure out how good these teams really are, right? So, last week versus Tampa Bay Vipers, the New York Guardians' red zone defense was absolutely phenomenal. The Vipers were moving the ball up and down the field, and despite how many yards they amassed, they were unable to punch the ball inside the red zone. Every time they threw the ball, it was an interception inside the red zone. They had 2 interceptions inside the red zone, I believe. And they also got a lot of stops inside the red zone. I mean, they got so bad that their defense was so good that they forced the Tampa Bay Vipers head coach to kick a field goal just so they can get some points on the board. And with the way that this XFL league is set up and all the rules and things like that, I mean, they really are trying to get rid of field goals and things like that. So that defense was absolutely lights out, and their secondary looked really, really impressive to me. I mean, that secondary was lights out. So I'm going to be interested in seeing how this New York Guardians secondary holds up versus this DC Defenders offense led by Cardale Jones. So for those of you guys who don't know, Pro Football Focus ranked Cardale Jones the best quarterback in the XFL from week 1 with a 92.2 overall grade by Pro Football Focus, which is 20 points higher than the second quarterback on that list. So, I mean, Cardale Jones, man, I mean, he was lights out. I mean, the DC Defenders offense kind of came out a little bit slow. They came out a little bit sluggish because, I mean, that's what you expect when you have an offense that's built around having big plays in the passing game. And then in the third quarter, they just absolutely erupted. They scored 19 unanswered points. So, I mean, when this offense gets going, it's really hard to stop. So the secondary of the New York Guardians versus this pass attack and these wide receivers that the DC Guardians has is going to be the key matchup in this game. Because when you have a quarterback like a Cardale Jones and the way the DC Defenders like to run their offense, they like to push the football down the field. So a way that you disrupt that if you are the New York Guardians is you got to have a good pass rush. You can't let Cardale Jones sit back there and get all day to throw the football and allow him to carve up your secondary. So you cannot allow those deep routes down the field to develop. And how you cancel that out is that you have to be able to have a good pass rush. And also, with the way that Cardale Jones and this DC Defenders offense played last week, I did think that it was some opportunities that could have resulted in interceptions, but ultimately the Seattle Dragons secondary wasn't able to capitalize on that. Facing a better secondary, I think this is a secondary that could make Cardale Jones pay for some of those mental mistakes that he made, but he got away with last week versus the Seattle Dragons because their secondary isn't as talented as the secondary that the New York Guardians has. So I think there is a possibility that this New York Guardians secondary could have some opportunities to have some turnovers the way that this DC Defenders team throws the football. They're really aggressive and they're attacking. Cardale Jones is really, really aggressive as well. I think last week he got away with some of those errors, some of those mental mistakes that he did because he's an aggressive quarterback. He trusts his arm. And, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a lot of confidence in your ability, but when you're facing a good secondary like the New York Guardians, they can make you pay for having a little bit too much confidence in your arm strength. And looking at not just looking at the Guardians, I mean, when you look at both of these teams, right? and these quarterbacks. Both of these quarterbacks played very well. I've been raving about Cardale Jones for mostly a good amount throughout this video, but I mean, Matt McGloin played pretty well as well. I mean, the stat sheet might not look pretty impressive or anything like that, but if you go ahead and watch that game, I mean, he made a lot of big plays when he mattered the most. He made a couple of big third down throws. I mean, Matt McGloin, man, I mean, this dude can ball out. I mean, although his stats weren't really that impressive, I thought he did pretty well considering what this Guardians coaching staff was asking him to do. I mean, this Guardians coaching staff, they're not asking Matt McGloin to do what Cardale Jones does and what P.J. Walker and the rest of these talented quarterbacks in the XFL does. I think what the Guardians want out of Matt McGloin is somebody who can manage the game. You don't really have to have a lot of big explosive plays and things like that, but they want a guy who can manage the game, make plays when they matter the most, and not turn the football over. And I think that's what Matt McGloin does best. And also, I think this is a Guardians team that is really good at running the football. And I mean, I'm really interested in seeing how this game matches up. Now, we look at the DC Defenders. I mean, their defense is just as good. Pro Football Focus ranked the DC Defenders defense the third best in the XFL when it comes to efficiency. So, I mean, this DC Defenders defense, they're just as good as well. They can get after the quarterback. Their secondary is also not too shabby as well. So, I mean, the big things to watch in this game is going to be the quarterback play, Cardale Jones versus Matt McGloin, because I think this game could end up being somewhat of a shootout, even though these two defenses are pretty good in my eyes. But I do think this game has the potential to be a shootout if nobody really turns the football over. So, I mean, another thing to look at in this game is going to be the offensive line play for the DC Defenders. Because, look, for the DC Defenders, when these wide receivers, they're going to get tested. Because this wide receiving core is really, really good. But the cornerbacks that the Guardians have are really good as well. I think the best cornerback that they have on the roster is Jamar Summers. I think that's an impact player that a lot of you guys need to write down and you guys need to take impact of, because Jamar Summers, he was the best defensive back in the AAF last year. I think he had a little bit of a trial with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the offseason, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't end up making the roster. But I mean, Jamar Summers is the best defensive back that the Guardians have. When you look at this talented wide receiver crops that this DC Defenders roster has, I think that's going to be a key matchup. But this offensive line has to be able to hold up, because when you run the offense like that likes to push the ball down the field, that's really aggressive, this offensive line has to be able to hold up. So can the Guardians get a consistent pass rush on Cardale Jones? And I think another thing to look into this game is that the way these rules are set up, the way the tempo of this game is, who's going to be able to have a stretch when they are able to go on the run and keep the opposing team from scoring. And it's like, it's really weird saying that, because normally you say a team going on a run, you mostly compare that term to basketball and things like that. But in XFL, with how fast the play clocks are and how fast the flow of the game is, it's like, the flow of the game kind of reminds me a little bit of arena football, with how many times the pace of the game changes and the possession changes and things like that because of how fast the play clock is. So when you look at the DC Defenders last week, a good example of this is when they came out to halftime, they scored 19 points and didn't allow any in the third quarter when they faced the Seattle Dragons. So I think this game could be a little bit more about momentum, who can get hot at the right point in the game and who can take advantage of that. And also, if you're the Guardians, you have to be able to force some turnovers, because I think this DC Defenders offense, they're going to be able to give you some chances of having some chances of getting some turnovers the way that they throw the football. Cardale Jones last week, although he played a really good game, he did get away with a couple of passes that should have been intercepted. So facing a good secondary like the Guardians, are they going to be able to make them take advantage of that? And I mean, look, although he played a good game, here's a good analogy for this. So I had a math class a couple of years ago. I had Algebra 1, right? Back in 8th grade, right? So I got the right answer, right? But it wasn't the right way of solving the problem. And my math teacher told me that just because you got the right answer using that method doesn't mean it's a proper way of using that method. And eventually it's going to catch up to you, right? So with Cardale Jones being the aggressive quarterback he is and having the tendency to kind of force passes that don't need to be forced, I think it will end up catching up to him in this game. And it could be a possibility that Cardale Jones maybe has a multiple interception game or something like that, because that's just what this offense is. It's a really aggressive offense. And Cardale Jones, sometimes he seems to force the issue most time than not in my viewpoint. So the team that I'm going with to win this game, I'm going to take the DC Defenders to win this game. And I think the DC Defenders win this game by a pretty comfortable margin. I think this Guardians offense is going to be able to keep up with this offense of the DC Defenders unless they're able to force some turnovers. And even if they do force some turnovers, I just think that the DC Defenders are just so good of a team that they're going to be able to overcome those, really, in my viewpoint. And I think the DC Defenders win this game 34-17 is my final score prediction for this game. So let me know who you guys have win this game down in the comment section down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel for more XFL videos and content. And thanks for watching.